y'all, I am Hope here at Crafty Hope, and welcome. You have joined me here for Index Card a Day, or ICAD, and this is days 22, 23, and 24. So, ICAD comes from Tammy Garcia. I'm going to have her links below. She provides daily prompts and weekly themes, as well as my friend Nina Fickett also has Mixed Media ICAD that runs at the same time, kind of in conjunction with her own set of prompts that she has for each day. On this day, Tammy's prompt, the Daisy Yellow prompt, is magazine paper, and the mixed media, no, I'm sorry, I got that backwards, is tulip, and the Mixed Media ICAD prompt is magazine paper. I don't believe I end up using the magazine paper in this one, but when I saw the tulip prompt at first, I was like, oh, maybe I won't use that, but then I realized I had a hand-carved stamp, so that's going to get brought in several ways, and this is going to be, oh, y'all, super futzy. So I do apologize. I have cut out some of the futzier bits of this. But let's watch this whole video. I think these days in particular, I was feeling kind of crazily. I don't know. It comes and goes. Inspiration always comes and goes. And this daily challenge for me is a great way to kind of make sure I create every day, even if I'm not feeling super creative. So first thing I did, like I do with most of my cards, is collage. I have, for me, the way I like to say it is it kind of revs up my creative engine. So I put down just a little bit of collage using some fluid matte medium. And once I got it all down, you saw I put some white gesso over the top of it just to kind of blend it together. And then that blue crayon-y thing I put down is, I'm not sure if that's one of the Colorix ones or one of the paint markers for kids. I'm not sure which, but it's like a watercolor crayon. And you saw I scribbled, I added some water, and then I dried it. So we are caught up now. This is Americana craft paint from DecoArt in the color of sea glass. Y'all, it is it's been my go-to lately, and this particular technique I keep using over and over again, which is to make some finger dots. This is I don't know how many pieces. I've got junk journal pages and art journal pages and other cards. I use the same thing where I make these dots, and then I go around them with this blue Stabilo All pencil. Stabilo All is like a watercolor pencil, except that it marks on all surfaces. So I'm going to go around this with that, but then I'm also going to pull in, I'm going to pull in, this is an R2 pen, which is just a basic roller ball pen from Dollar Tree. So, and I have found that it does some bleedy yumminess like I love. And so I'm going around just a few of these finger dots that I've circled with the blue and bleeding it all out just a little bit, getting some yummy, blendy grunginess. I'm trying to do this as random as I can, So I'm going to do several of those, kind of let that move around on the page. And then I do what I pick up, of that black ink. I am splattering around on, I say the page, it is a page, but it's a card. All right, one more. I'm surprised I didn't go ahead and just do all of them, because honestly, for me, it's so fun to do that, to just get that little bit of bleediness, and I could do that all day long. I think it's one of my favorite things. So here is one of my hand carved stamps. You can see it's on a just basic pink eraser. I have a link that I'll put in the upper right here to my, what is it? I've got a little tutorial on how I make these, but it's pretty basic stamp carving. Okay, so I'm going to stamp this on a piece of craft cardstock I happen to have on my desk. It just happened to be there. And I thought, okay, there. And I used StazOn ink, which is an ink that will not blend or move. And And from there, I'm going to ink up the edges of it with Distress Oxide ink in Walnut Stain. So this is a brown one. It's a pigment ink, and it will bleed. All the Distress products tend to. So, and I'll take a wet paintbrush and move it around. And this is some of the futziness. This little card, I don't know what you would call it, this tulip card is not going to end up in this. If you saw the picture at the beginning or anything I post on Instagram, you know that this, you're not going to see this. So I am putting a little bit more of that ink and gonna pick it up with a wet paintbrush and try to splatter it on there. Just trying to make this feel a little bit grungier or something. Like I said, this isn't gonna work its way in there. So I futzed and futzed, and y'all see there's other things on my desk. I futzed with that forever and could not come up with anything. So finally I was like, just put the tulip on the card, hope. So yep, I'll use that Stays On again and stamp that tulip stamp right there on the card. And here's one of the things I'd futzed with was a piece of, I think it's an old sheet that I made a frame. And I thought, okay, I'm going to put that around there, but let's work with this tulip a little bit more. So I'm using a Uniball Signo gold gel pen to kind of go around that tulip and try to bring it to the front. And I wanted to bring the tulip motif in there a little bit more, so I grabbed Distress Oxide and Black Soot, and I'm going to put it just kind of on the edges of this card and then bleed those out, because again, this is a distress product, so those bleed, and anytime something is water soluble, that's what I gotta do. I gotta do it. I can't help myself. It just feels good and feels right. So I indulge. All right, so I've got those kind of bled out a little bit, and I will dry them super quick. And then since I put that gold pen on the card, I thought, okay, well, let's bring in some other gold. So I've got this gold ink that's Liquitex acrylic ink, and I'm going to use a fan brush to do some splatters on the card, again, just to bring that gold elsewhere on the card, since I did have it. And again, I'm going to dry. There was so much futzing, y'all, so this is going to be rather futzy as well. And it's going to show you that just because you start with something or you have something doesn't mean that you have to keep it. You know, you can always change it in some way. So I stuck down using my Oohoo glue stick, tacked down that little bit of fabric. I've got some gold embroidery floss there, and I'm making French knots on the four corners of this card. So I'm thinking about it. I was trying to decide if I want to do something in between. I don't have much of that embroidery floss on the needle, so I thought, even getting the four corners was going to be a bit of a stretch on this. And then I wasn't liking how the fabric felt so flat, so I pulled up all the edges of it so that they would feel a little more free floating there. And I'm going to put that last one there and then tie this off. And I'm going to look at it and decide that I want more to that frame than just those four corners. That fabric that I had on there, like I said, I think it's just a sheet, an old bed sheet that I've torn down. I picked it up at a thrift store and tore it down. Yeah. So I decided what I need to add to that frame I needed to outline it. So I'm using the eraser on a mechanical pencil and some black acrylic paint, made some dots, decided those dots weren't quite it. So I'll put gold dots inside. That is a gold paint pen from the Dollar Tree. And that fabric is soaking in the paint, soaking in everything. It is, y'all, I was not feeling it. I mean, looking at it now, it probably was fine, but I was hating it. So I snipped off my knots, and I'm going to pull up that fabric and try to start again. Now at this point, I did have the holes in the card where I had put the embroidery floss through. And I wasn't sure I wanted to do that, so I grabbed some black thread. I had to get more of this black thread out. I'm going to snip it down, put it back on my needle, and I don't know why I kept all of this in here. Maybe to explain to y'all again, that, I hated that. I didn't like it. So I found a way to change it in some way. And the whole time I was trying to change it. I put that fabric down to begin with, and I thought, okay, it needs something. So I added the gold, and that didn't work. So I said, okay, well, it needs something else. So I added the dots, and those dots didn't work. So I added more dots, and then it just didn't work. So I pulled it off. So here you can see I took that black thread and I have added a line across from one of those holes to the other, and it was going across the top of my little tulip. So I thought, okay, let's pull the thread up by stitching a stitch that holds the thread out. Well, if I do it on one of them, in my head, I've got to do it on all of these lines. So, but the stitch was too far out, so I'm going to pull it in. Now, I will admit, this was not the be-all, end-all solution for this. I could have covered up that tulip completely with something else. I could have kept the fabric and just kept adding things to it. I could, the solution isn't the best thing, but it's something. It was better than what I had. So I ended up being fairly happy with this. It was something new and different. And yeah, so here I'm going to do that last line here. And again, I'm pulling the initial thread inward and stitching it in place. And I decided I wanted just a few more touches. So I'm going to add a stitch on either side of those center stitches. See, here's me like playing with it. Do I want to pull the thread through here somehow? No, that's not going to work. So this is part of the reason that this video is so very long, is there was a lot of me, and I did, like I said, I cut out quite a bit of futzing with trying to find a fabric and that kind of thing. But I really wanted y'all to see that this was a whole process of me going, okay, now what? and trying something a little bit different each time. And I think that's why I like ICAD, because these are just index cards. They're of no consequence. If I hate it, that's fine. It's, I spent half an hour or something on experimenting and playing and trying different things, and I'm doing it every day, and that gives me 61 opportunities. I don't think I mentioned it, but yes, ICAD runs each June and July, and I look forward to it. It's lately been coming on the heels of the 100-day project, and I kind of love that because I can step back from what I was doing, but still have a daily art challenge. Does that make sense? As many of you would like to just be done with the daily art, but for me, keeping going, it really keeps me experimenting and playing. Okay, so I have tied that off. The next thing I'm going to need, as I finish most of my cards, is some kind of sentiment. So I'm going to pull out, I think, my metallic stickers from Tim Holtz, because I do have that bit of gold on there, and I felt like a pop of black with the gold would be really good. Of course, first I'm going to ink these edges up with Distress ink in black soot, and then I'll get that sticker out and pick one out. Now I'm going to let you know that at the end of each of these sections for these days, I am going to show you a quick look at these cards, but at the end of the whole video, I'll have a better look at all of them. So I put down the sticker that says one of a kind, and once that's down, I think I'm going to use that R2 pen again to give it a little bit of shadow before I finish this card. Okay guys, that is it for now. We'll get to card 23 here in just a moment. For card 23, I used neither of the prompts. The Daisy Yellow prompt was Hummingbird, and the Mixed Media ICAD prompt was Split Complementary Colors. And I wasn't really feeling it. I thought about trying to do the Split Complementary Colors. I think I tried to work with it a little bit, but it just really wasn't working for me. So this time I am collaging using my Oohoo glue stick, and you can see a bunch of just different papers. These are all very much neutral, and this card in general is going to stay very neutral, which is kind of odd for me not to have any color. Usually I throw a little bit of blue in there, but this one is definitely sandwiched by two blue cards or aqua colored cards. So I am tearing down all kinds of things. You can see there's book pages in there. It looks like I've got some eco prints. I'm really enjoying that security envelope. I don't save every security envelope or every envelope with the security in there, but every once in a while there's one that just speaks to me, and something about that black on that one works so well. So this is another eco print here, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to use it to cover up that bit of the white card poking through. So I tore down a little, yep, and that piece is going to work perfect. I don't like straight edges on things, and I try as best as I can to put those straight edges up against the edges of the card. And when I can't, I spend a lot of time turning those little bits of paper around to see if I can get the edges to be off, because I really prefer torn edges. So I am now tearing down that little piece of eco print there to kind of scatter it around on the card. I finally made myself stop. And I'm going to trim the edges of this before what am I going to do next? I think I'm going to come in with my little yogurt cup of coffee and, reconstitute it. This is instant coffee that has dried up in this yogurt cup. You can see I don't add much water to it when I reconstitute it, but I get it enough to get a little bit of juiciness in there, and I'm gonna do some mark making with it. This is a funky little card. I mean, I really like the collage I got on here in general, guys. And you can see I did, once I got the collage, and I think I had been collaging it with the card upside down based on where I had the writing on the back, and sometimes I end up turning them the other way. So this one's gonna stay in this orientation. But yeah, I did mark making with coffee all the way across that card, and then I decided I needed some gesso. So I put a little bit of that white gesso on my desk, and I'm picking it up with my brayer and adding just a touch of white around on the card. Again, I like to do this to kind of bring the collage elements together to make things feel a little more organic and less contrived. So that's all that's happening here. And I was really trying not to add too much of that white on there, but I still wanted it to feel more cohesive. So once I have my gesso down, I think, I'm going to bring more coffee in. I was feeling like some of that coffee I'd put down that I was really enjoying got pushed to the back. So I'm going to paint on here, and I have found for some reason no other product for me works the same way as some reconstituted instant coffee to pick up the lines of those papers when I lay them down. I don't know, something about the coffee picks up texture so beautifully. So that's what I was doing, was kind of painting to get some of that texture pulled out, and then I dried it. So I am coming back in with a little bit of, this is some golden fluid acrylic, and y'all, I cannot think of what the color is. I will put it in the description box below with all of my other materials listings. So even if I can't find a link to it, I'll have it down there. I can't think of what it's called. For some reason I want to say Indian yellow, but I don't think that's right, because I don't think golden uses descriptors like that. So I'm adding this little bit of yellow around on the page in just little spots. You can see kind of blending it out. I had this bit of a trim that looks like a daisy or a sunflower or something like that I thought I was going to add on this card, and spoiler, it's not getting added on here. It's another one of those things that I thought I was going to use that I'm not going to use. So I took my black Stabilo you saw and did some really loose scribbles, and I am activating those with that thin paintbrush, and I think I'm trying to hit almost all of them to make sure they pop. You can see how when the water is added to that bit of Stabilo, it suddenly becomes so much more prominent, and I love it. Love it. All right, so I'm looking at that. Tried, you can see I'm adding some walnut stain distress ink to the petals of this trim. I don't know, lace trim. What do you just trim flower? I cut it off a line of them that I had picked up from somewhere, and I'm looking at it, and y'all, I'm looking at it right now. I really do like it. It just really wasn't what I was going for, and I don't know what that was, but yeah. For some reason I felt like this needed a pop of something bright, so I pulled out the Amsterdam acrylic ink in Reflex Rose, and I'm gonna get at my same little fan brush I used the day before and do some splatters on here. And I get those down, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I like those. So I'm going to grab a paper towel and pick them up. Yep. And which they're going to still be on the card faintly, and you can see I'm trying to dab at this rather than wipe, because if I knew if I wiped it would just smear it across my card. So, and when I did that, it kind of left these like shadows or outlines of it. So I decided to do it again a little bit more since it was already on there. That pink was going to be there. Might as well just write it out. So I'm doing the same thing all over again, more of those pink splatters and picking them up. All right, at this point I had decided against, I think, my flower, and decided to pull out some buttons. This is a bag of buttons I picked up at, I don't know, y'all, an estate sale or a thrift store or something, and dumped a few on my page. I'm going to toy with several different things. I put that little bit of fabric scrap down. I'm not positive what that is, y'all. It's some kind of scrap fabric that I thought was kind of great because of the way it frays. It's kind of an open weave, and I liked it. So I decided almost immediately, let's layer a fabric. Let's layer a button on top of this fabric. And I really wanted that fraying, the button to be on the other side from the fraying, because I wanted to cover up the cut line somewhat. And so that's, what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 3 buttons down. I don't know at what point I finally decide which 3 buttons, because those white ones, well, one of them may go on there, but 2 of them are definitely not going on there. I'm sitting here with the card in front of me, so I know what's about to happen. Not exactly, but I know how this is going to end up. So I found that kind of, y'all, it's a pinky mauvey red-ish button that I thought would go kind of well with that pink I put in the background. So now I am going to stitch these on. I'm using some, I guess it's like crochet thread that I also picked up at a thrift store. First though, I have to tie a knot. For some reason I thought I already had a knot in it. Did not. So I will stitch these on, just a simple X stitch. These are all going to be 4-hole buttons, so I'm doing an X stitch. I like the statement of that. I think especially when like this dark button is, you can see that X pretty prominently. Now, y'all, I didn't notice it until I was editing the photos for this, and you may see them at the end, but this button has some definite wearing. It was probably cut off somebody's jacket or something like that, and you can see kind of the worn bits of it where somebody handled it over and over and over again. It's kind of neat. I didn't notice that when I put it on there, and it's only prominent in the picture, so you may even have to pause to see it, but I thought that was really neat when I was editing those photos. So I am stitching this next button, that like pinky mauve one. I don't even know what you would call that. It's like a light maroon maybe. And then at the bottom, I will add a white one just to have a pop of brightness that kind of goes with the thread. And this card doesn't have a whole lot. I did put that white gesso down, but that stuff is not showing through at all, is it? I put coffee and all kinds of stuff on top of it. That's not showing up. So, and I guess I may add something else dark, because I'm looking at this card and looking at what we're looking at, and I'm not seeing the same thing. Yeah, I don't know what's about to happen. We'll see. All right, so I'm adding that last button. I'm also going to add a couple of little X stitches there, partly to make sure that that fabric is securely attached to the card, but also I really like that little extra touch of stitching on there, and I've been trying to figure out how to get that in some of my other stuff ever since I kind of looked at this card. I'm like, ooh, I really like those just random like cross stitches here. So I'm gonna put those two little ones down. And what are we going to do from there? I don't know. We're going to discover together. Y'all, when I am recording this voiceover, it is day 52 of this. So it is 30 whole days, like a whole month out from when I did this card. And look what I did. I missed a stitch there. So I'm going to have, you can see how much fiddling I did to this. Y'all, I was just rushing. I don't know what I thought I was doing. I'm fairly sure I didn't do that on purpose, and then decided whether or not I wanted to keep it. That little mistake of going around the card instead of through the card. Okay. So there's that. Now I am trying to figure out what kind of focal I want to put on there. And I've got my snippet roll. Have y'all watched my snippet roll? I created it as part of my 100-day project, which was a Not Precious project. And early on, I kind of knew I wanted to make a snippet roll with some of the papers I had held too precious and too dear. So this is just a little strip of it. I did ink it up with walnut stained distress ink, pulled out this Tim Holtz, what is it called? It's a label sticker that says start somewhere. And I really like how that black popped on it. It was a good, like, stands out. So I'm going to ink that up a little bit more. I'm decided, okay, let's go ahead and tie this off. You like how I just left that on there until I had made some decisions? I find myself doing that all the time. I'm like, don't cut the thread till you're sure you're done with it, hope. So yeah, that's what I did. I'm going to tie it off real quick, trim it down, and then futz for a little bit longer with what we're going to do with this. So since I had inked up that snippet roll with that walnut stained distress ink, I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges of the card as well. And I'm going to look at that, and I do like that snippet roll is not as dark as the rest of this. So yeah, but that snippet roll piece was a little flimsy, so I said, well, let's back it with something. What do I have? And I found the previous day's little piece of cardstock, and I'm going to reuse it. Nothing gets wasted here in the Crafty Hope studio. Nothing. So I put that on there, and it really wasn't quite thick enough, so I grabbed a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to use it to stabilize and lift this bit of a sentiment. I have found more and more that some of my favorite cards are the ones that have raised or 3D elements on them. So this card for sure is getting that. And it's just trash. It's just some cardboard. I think it's in fact just the flap off a piece of cardboard. So I did pull off that bit of the daisy that I had, the tulip I had put there, but I tried to use it. And I'm gonna add a little bit more of the Stabilo. I decided I needed more black on there. I knew there was some more darkening that was going to happen. I was like, that card is not dark enough in some places. So more of the Stabilo basically to go with the dark black that I have on that sentiment, because it was so dark black and I didn't feel like I had a whole lot of black going on in the card. So that's all that is me trying to to carry that over. And I will use my Fabri-Tac on the back of the cardboard to stick that down. And again, I'm going to give you another super quick look at this card, but you will get a bunch of more pictures at the end. All right, guys, let's get to day 24 here in just a second. And for the last card in this video is card 24. The prompts are coffee or tea and water soluble marker. So I knew there's my coffee that I've got right there. I also have some tea bags that I can use in my stash, and I had a tin full of like different water soluble markers. So Tombows and some of the distress markers and things like that. So, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I knew I had those things right there on hand. So I'm going to use both of those prompts. And I decided to get started right away by covering my card with a single piece of paper. This is some kind of typed paper from my stash. And I used my fluid matte medium. And yeah, just sticking that down super fast, ready to get started. It's going to take a couple tries to get it all stuck down. But yeah, and I will cut off the excess. I think I cut it. I might tear it. I'm folding it. I might tear it. I do. So I'm going to get that tore down and flattened, and from there, what did I decide to do? I am going to go ahead and grab a couple of those water soluble markers to color my page. So I've got this I guess I didn't use the Tombow at all. Maybe I will. It's a couple of like aqua colored ones. This one is, I think, an American Crafts one. And then you can see I've got one of the distress markers. That one is, I've completely dried that one up. You can see I tried to get some of the color down, but I ended up, I think, throwing that one away right away. Because I was like, well... And then I looked through my Tombows. Oh, I did. And I found another kind of greeny, bluey marker. These are water soluble, so of course I am going to throw some water on them. And you'll see what happens. I spritz it with the water, and look, you don't even see those lines that I made. And y'all, I have to admit that when I was editing the pictures of this, I didn't look at what the prompts were, and I kept going, what did I do to add those? And I do this all the time. I have no idea what it was I used to make some of the colors and everything. So I did use a paintbrush to move a little bit of that down, and I'll grab a paper towel to pick up some of the excess before I was like, just dry it and see where you're at, because I was fairly sure if I added more water, I could push it back even more. So I am going to dry this. I've left this to see me dry it, because you can see I'm moving that around, picking up some that falls off, dabbing some on my desk, just kind of playing with the movement of the water that's on there as I dried it. And you can see this dried much, much lighter than what I originally had down, but I thought it was pretty awesome. So I didn't want to take away too much of that, so I'm going to play with that. Kind of that being in the background and being able to see it. I did grab another one of my hand carved stamps, and this stays on permanent ink. This is just a spiral, so I decided to kind of do it across the bottom. It's almost like waves, but what I end up adding to it, it's not really. It just gives it, because it's so dark, it gives it some weight here at the bottom. Yeah. So I am putting these all the way across. I kept going, am I going to stop? Is that enough? But yeah, I finally was like, okay, that is plenty enough of those stamped bits. And from there, I was like, okay, let's go ahead and add the coffee into this. So I will pull out, I think that's what I'm going to do next. I was kind of giving the Stabilo a chance to dry. And you can see that card, because I had added so much wet media to it, was definitely curling. And I am using heavyweight index cards, and they're still curling because I just throw too much at it. So I again wet up my instant coffee as one of the prompts, and so now I have both prompts on there: coffee and water soluble marker. So I'm just kind of going around those stamps a little bit, adding a little additional weight, not worrying about the stuff at the top so much yet. So once I get my coffee added, and I didn't want to obscure everything, but I wanted to get that coffee on there, kind of make it cohesive with that. And the addition of the water also moves some of that water soluble marker around. So I was trying not to affect it too much. And I decided I did want to kind of cover up some of the writing that was up there, like what it actually said, that kind of thing. So I doodled, and one of my absolute favorite things to do is to just draw straight lines. I don't know what it is, but it's a soothing thing, and it adds such an impact. So again, I'm using that R2 marker from the Dollar Tree, and again, it is water soluble. So I will be adding something that adjusts it just a little bit. You'll see, we'll get there. But I'm loving these lines. This hole with the round on the bottom and the straight lines at the top, it felt, I don't know, it has this curvy but structured element that, I don't know, I really love it. So I'm going to grab my little paintbrush there and just splatter water on it. And you can see that ink is immediately affected, which is super cool. Love that. In fact, I think I used that even today on my card. So you'll have to wait a couple weeks to see that. So I'm trying that, and coming in, this is just a piece of an old book page, and cutting out some found words. It says, perhaps he did not believe her at all. And I thought that was a kind of neat little phrase. Perhaps, it could be pertaining to anything. So I kind of liked it, but it felt unfinished, like distrustworthy. And I wanted to bring it back around to something a little bit kinder. So I'll fix that in a minute. First, I'm kind of playing with if I just want to stick that phrase right there in the middle of it, or if I want to do something. And then I remembered, oh yeah, tea bags, because the prompt is coffee or tea, and I'm going to use coffee and tea. So I've used actual coffee, and then I've got this tea bag. So I'm going to tear it down just a little bit to back up the sentiment, and I think I'll just use my Oohoo glue stick to stick that down. Possibly, maybe. Am I? I was thinking more and more about that sentiment. Like, do I like the sentiment? What can I do about this sentiment? So I grabbed my Oohoo glue stick, and I'm going to throw that right down onto that tea bag, and then I'll probably use the Oohoo again to stick that bit of tea bag. You can see I'm looking at embroidery floss, trying to decide if I wanted to bring that in, because again, I tend to like things with more 3D elements to them, and this just did not have it. So while I was thinking on that, I decided to go ahead and ink up the edges of the card with Distress Ink and Walnut Soot and my ink blender. Again, I've said this in almost every video, the inking of the edges really just kind of frames it up for me. Feels a little bit more complete. All right, I'm going to look at it again, think about that embroidery floss. What is it I want to do? I'm looking at more floss. I was thinking maybe I could put the floss behind it, and I was like, no, that's not what I want. What is it that I want? And I'm sorry I didn't cut out some of this thought with you, but it was really important for me to see that, important for me to show you that I don't always, I do edit out some of the futzing, but there is a certain amount of pause that I give myself with things. So I decided that what I wanted to do to make this a little bit more kind was to type up a phrase that says, but he loved her just the same. So I typed that on the margin of that same book page, so that would have the same coloring of it. And you can see I've also pulled out some other things. I've put down that wonky bit there, which is a botanical image I made based on a class I took from Wendy Solganic. I'll have a link to her classes below. At least I think yeah. So I cut down my phrase, and I'm thinking about the wonky bits and playing with those a little bit more. And I really like the pop of white that these give this. And so, yeah, I grabbed 2 of them, kind of put them off to the edge because I thought it brought it, I don't know, kind of is what drew the eye. The phrases don't draw the eye very well. So that pop of white, I felt like would draw the eye a bit more. So I'm going to use my Uhu glue stick once again and stick this bit of the additional phrase down on a tea bag, and reminding myself that if I didn't get this next part right, I could go type up some more. So what I'm going to do is tear this in a circular shape, basically, to kind of echo the circles that are at the bottom of this page. And I will ink these. I ink them, I don't remember if I inked them with the black or if I ink them with the brown. We'll see in a second. Not that it matters, because I didn't ink the one on the top, but I decided to ink the one on the bottom, and it's with the black. Yeah, with the black soot distress ink. So I'm going to futz with this a little bit, and then I will stick this phrase down. And I think that's gonna be about everything for this. I'll also use the Uhu to stick down my botanicals, and I will be done with cards 22, 23, and 24 for ICAD. If you have any questions about anything I've done on here, or any of my materials, or just questions for me in general, I would be happy to answer them. So ask away and come back later and see what else I'm sharing. I'm still going through my 100-day project along with these ICADs and anything else I get my crafty hands into. So come back later and check it out. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. I will see you later. Bye.